If you're looking to actually build wealth, it doesn't matter how much you earn. It matters how much you keep. And that process starts the moment your direct deposit hits your bank account. Hello there, guys. I'm Fawani. I've spent years working for the Coast Guard and the government as a budget analyst. Crushing numbers has been my thing for a very long time, and today I'm breaking down the 10-step routine you need to follow every single payday. The very first thing you have to do is establish your survival baseline, and we do this because most people suffer from lifestyle creep, where their spending rises just as fast as your raises. It's that feeling when you make more money than ever, but your bank account still looks the same at the end of the month because you are ignoring your spending habits. The good news is finding your baseline is simple. Just grab a notebook or open a spreadsheet and list every single thing you've spent your money on for the last month, like your rent, your electric bill, your gym membership, and your takeout. And then I want you to aggressively take off everything that is not necessary for you to function, like the latte, the streaming services, and the expensive DoorDash orders. Once you do that, you're left with your core needs like housing, which should ideally be under 30% of your take-home pay, your basic groceries, which usually land around 10%, and your essential utilities like water and heat, which take up another 10%. That final number is your survival baseline, and your goal is to keep this number below 50% of your total income. If you're over that mark, you need to look at downsizing or using resources like the Buy Nothing Project or local community groups to lower those fixed costs. Step 2 is to secure your peace of mind by funding your emergency fund account. A recent study showed that half of the American population could not cover a surprise $500 car repair without using a credit card. And that is a dangerous way to live because of a little thing called financial gravity, which says that when things go wrong, they tend to pull everything else down with them. For example, a few years back, our HVAC system died in the middle of winter, and the bill to replace it came out to about $7,000. Around that same time, the trees surrounding our home turned out to be diseased, and removing them cost us another $5,000. So we were suddenly looking at more than $12,000 in unexpected expenses, and the alternative was letting my family go without heat or risking a tree coming down on our house during a storm. If I didn't have cash set aside for emergencies, that situation could have spiraled fast. But because we already built that buffer, the whole thing was manageable. We just paid for the repairs and kept life moving. The standard rule is to save enough to cover 6 months of your survival baseline. So, if your essential needs cost $2,500 a month, you want $15,000 tucked away for a rainy day. And if you want to jumpstart your progress, I created a free spending with purpose tracker that lets you plug in your income, expenses, needs, and wants, so you can see for yourself how you're spending your money and push more towards your emergency fund. It is totally free to download, so check the link below right underneath the subscribe button. Also, make sure this money lives in a high-yield savings account away from your main bank. The current ones are paying about 4.5%, which is huge compared to the pennies that you get at traditional big box banks. Next, you need to get aggressive about any debt with an interest rate higher than 7% or 8%, and you have to view this as a priority over investing, because paying off a high interest credit card is literally the only way to get a guaranteed return on your investment. Now, usually if somebody promises you a guaranteed 20% profit, they're probably trying to sell you a dream. But with debt, it is a mathematical fact. So, if you have a $5,000 balance on a card with a 22% interest rate, you're essentially setting $1,100 on fire every single year. That is money that could be going towards your house or your retirement, but instead it is going into a bank's pocket. If you take that $5,000 and pay the card off immediately, you've effectively earned an $1,100 profit because you're no longer paying that money in interest. So, pay those high rates down before you even think about the stock market. The next phase is to contribute just enough to your company's 401k to get the maximum employer match. It's shocking, but nearly 40% of people don't contribute enough to get their full match, which is essentially like your employer offering you a pile of cash and you saying, no thanks, I have enough money already. A standard match might be 100% of what you put in, up to 4% of your pay. So if you earn $75,000 a year and you put in $3,000, your company gives you another $3,000 for free. And thanks to the power of compound interest, that $3,000 yearly match could turn into nearly $400,000 over 30 years. The next move is to max out your Roth IRA. So unlike a 401k where you get the tax break now, with a Roth IRA, you pay the taxes up front. So everything you earn from that point on is 100% tax-free when you retire. So imagine if your account grows to $1 million or $5 million over your career. You could take every single cent out without giving the government a dime, which is a massive win in the long run. And even though it is meant for retirement, the Roth is pretty flexible because you can withdraw your original contributions at any time without penalty. For 2026, the limit right now is $7,500 for most people or $8,600 if you're over 50. Just keep in mind that there are income limits for this account. So if you're a high income earner who makes over $160,000 as a single person, you should look at the backdoor Roth strategy to get your money in there. Step 6 is to look at other tax advantage vehicles that fit your specific life situation. For me, I've always been a huge fan of the HSA or the health savings account because it has a triple tax benefit. You put your money in tax-free, it grows tax-free, and you spend it on healthcare tax-free. You should also look into things like the 529 plan if you have kids like I do. This is also the point where you're going to circle back and put any extra funds into your 401k if you've already hit the limit on everything else. Step number 7 is to invest in yourself. Now we get to a crossroad where you have to decide between two very important paths, and it all comes down to opportunity cost, which is just a fancy way of saying that what am I giving up by choosing A over B? There's no correct choice here, so you can swap step 7 and 8 depending on how you feel about it. But step 7 is all about investing in yourself, because for most people, the fastest way to build wealth isn't through the stock market. It is by increasing your primary income. If you can spend $1,000 on a certification or a high-level workshop that leads to a $10,000 raise, that is a 1,000% return on your investment. Your brain is your most valuable asset, so don't be afraid to spend money to make it sharper. The next step, which I mentioned could be swapped with the previous one, is to build your long-term portfolio and put your money to work in a taxable brokerage account for the long haul. For 90% of the people, the smart move is to buy a low-cost total market index fund and let it sit forever. You're looking for things with tiny fees that track the broad economy like VTI or IVV. Historically, the market has returned about 10% annually, which means your money doubles roughly every 7 to 10 years if you just leave it alone. If you were to invest $500 a month starting at age 30 and you hit that 10% average, you're going to have over $1.1 million by the time you retire at 65. But if you just let that same $500 sit in a standard savings account, you will only have around $210,000. And that difference is what defines your quality of life in the future. Step 9 is when you turn your attention to the low interest debt, like a mortgage or a student loan that is under 5%. We saved this one for the end because the interest you're paying on these is likely lower than what you would have paid by investing that same money in the stock market. So there's no rush to pay these off early, but you still want to plan to get rid of them eventually to free up your monthly cash flow. For now, just keep making your regular payments and maybe add a little extra to your principals only once all your other investment buckets are full. The final and most crucial step is to automate every single thing we just talked about, because humans are naturally prone to making mistakes when we're tired or stressed out. I used to try to do all this manually, and it was exhausting trying to remember what bill was due when and how much I wanted to save that month. It leads to what experts call decision fatigue, where the more choices you have to make, the worse those choices become. So it is why you're more likely to buy a new gadget or order expensive takeout at 8 p.m. than you are at 8 a.m. But when you automate your system, you remove the temptation to spend the money before it gets saved. So here's how I do it. my paycheck lines, and then my bank automatically routes specific percentages to my emergency funds and my brokerage account. And then I have all my bills set to auto pay, so I never have to look at a calendar. Eventually, you'll realize that following a system like this takes the emotion out of money, which is the biggest secret to success. So that's it, guys. If you want to know the most efficient ways to save $10,000, go ahead and click on this video right here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Fawani, and I'll see you in the next video. You got this.